A very active weather pattern is likely as we move into Thanksgiving week, followed by a pattern shift that will usher in cold Arctic air with increased winter weather chances across areas of the country as we move into the early portion of the month of December. So here to discuss all the details we have on this, my name is Mitch. Good Sunday morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Subscribe if you haven't, like the video if you like it. And of course, if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Let's go over the Euro first, and we'll go over to the GFS. We're going to start this off with this Thursday afternoon, so the 20th, and then we'll make our way into Thanksgiving week. There is a system over the middle of the country that I think could bring some severe weather chances, even as early as Wednesday, but into Thursday, into Friday across areas of the central U.S. So we got a 1,002 millibar low right outside the Rockies. We got a lot of weather across Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, things like that. Once you see some of the blue on the map, that is the potential for snow. So on the backside of this low, maybe a little bit of snow in Colorado, areas of Nebraska. We just got to watch for some severe weather chances in this area of green, yellow, red, things like that. South of the low where we have warm, moist air. So as we make our way into this Friday and then this upcoming weekend, this system could make its way up into Canada, could bring just good old-fashioned rain across areas of the Northeast. You're seeing a lot of snow. We've seen it this weekend across areas of New England, things like that. I think next weekend we're going to have more of a rainstorm. But as we make our way into a week from today, so this is next Sunday, November the 23rd, I'm sorry. A lot of people have Thanksgiving week off. You're traveling, going from point A to point B, going to grandma's house, wherever you may be going. I do think we got to watch for maybe 1 to 2 high-impact storm systems. I do think we got to watch for a system down here in the deep south areas, the south-central U.S., and this is just cut-off energy, sort of a low-pressure cut-off and kind of trapped into a ridge. Most of our cold air is up here, but we do have a low going across the northern Rockies. So if you live out there, I do think I'm actually more confident out west for some significant weather than I am anywhere else across the country. But as we make our way into, say, Tuesday evening, there could be a storm system across the eastern U.S. A lot of areas could use rain. For example, I live in central South Carolina. It has not rained in my house this month. But we continue to make our way into Thanksgiving Eve, November the 26th. And I think there's going to be just a battleground of air masses right in the middle of the country. Got a 1,008 millibar low. Could we get some sort of winter storm? It's very possible. Model guidance is everywhere on this. But as we're getting into Thanksgiving, the Euro has most of the country pretty quiet, with a system moving into the Pacific Northwest. But it's just anywhere around Thanksgiving week, are we going to see a couple high-impact storm systems? I think we are, at least one. But the latest Euro doesn't show a whole lot. It shows a lot of weather moving into the last weekend of November, but the eastern U.S. looks pretty quiet. Okay, it looks like a system is scooting through, as there's kind of like a zonal Arctic air boundary, kind of north is cold, south is warm. Does that cold air unleash? So that's the Euro. What about the GFS? Definitely different, starting off this coming Thursday morning, the 20th. We got to watch for this storm system later this work week. I think this could bring some severe weather chances. It's going to be enough overlapping ingredients for severe weather. Not quite sure. I do think we'll at least have a shot. I know a severe weather outbreak, highly doubt that. But some rain will move across the Northeast, just like the Euro is showing. So there is some agreement there for this upcoming weekend. Maybe a shot of Arctic air. The GFS likes to be more aggressive with this cold air. But definitely moves and really just hits the Great Lakes region in the Northeast like it's already been doing. And then as we get into Tuesday, November the 25th, 998 millibar low popping off the Rockies. A lot of snow across the Rockies, lower elevation rain, and then the system really begins to deepen, and we could just get kind of a 1-2 punch. We got a lot of snow across the Rockies. We got snow across the Dakotas, northern Minnesota. So one might say, well, this is just where this kind of stuff happens this time of the year, and I would agree with you, but the GFS shows you what I think is very possible. I don't think it's completely off its rockers here, which we know the GFS can be sometimes, but shows that 997 low Thanksgiving Eve evening going across the middle of the country. And I think this is a realistic scenario. There's going to be a battle of air masses. And I mean, look at this snowstorm breaking out across the central and northern high plains, including Denver, things like that. And then we got a lot of rain on the warmer side of this, and this could be severe weather. And then we get into Thanksgiving morning, Thanksgiving afternoon has a 996 millibar low. And down here where you see the greens, yellows, and orange, That could very well be severe weather. I know it's past 10 days, but this is fully into Thanksgiving Day. This could potentially be a blizzard right here if this is the way it plays out. And then cold air would follow, and then rain would actually move across the eastern U.S. But it's pretty far out. It's all the way into the last weekend of November. Cold air actually tries to catch up with some of this moisture, turn some of that rain to snow. And then what happens after that, who knows? Anybody's call on that. One thing we're pretty confident in, right? It's going to be a lot of moisture across the middle of the country and eventually into areas of the eastern U.S., especially kind of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, western deep south, and mid-south. So you see these areas right in here. I mean, this is where we could get multiple inches of rain, and this will most likely be all rain, except maybe when you get onto the northwestern fringe of this precipitation shield. Out west, of course, we could get higher elevation snow, things like that. But, speaking of snow, this is potential snow between now and the next 10 days. Not exactly a forecast. It's the Euro Ensemble, one of the best things you can look at, and shows the possibility of higher elevation snow. So, these ski resorts, things like that, it's going to be finally starting to kind of rack it in a little bit. But Sierra Nevada will get a lot of snow over the next 72 hours. So it's definitely on the way. The central U.S., this is where I kind of want to show you. Now, this is between now and about Tuesday, November the 25th. Shows a little signal for snow up here, not much. I want you to watch how the gap kind of fills in here after we start to move into Thanksgiving Day into the last weekend of November. See how everything begins to close in? And I think that fits what we're seeing. I think cold air will start to kind of flirt with this region. Then some of these storm systems could begin to have a little bit more winter weather with it. So there's a signal kind of between day 10 and day 15 that increases the snow potential across the northern section of the country. But look at this tight battleground of nothing and something as far as the winter weather category here. But I do think, a couple key areas around the Thanksgiving time frame I want to watch out for is that Front Range and the northern high plains and central high plains. I think that's an area to watch for maybe some winter weather right around Thanksgiving time. My in-laws are actually going out to Denver to visit my brother-in-law around Thanksgiving, so they might see some snow. I'm kind of jealous there. But anyways, this backs up what we're seeing with this. This is the Climate Prediction Center. The risk of heavy snow. You're at a slight risk in this area right here between the 23rd and the 29th, almost a week period. And then between the 26th and the 29th, which, covers Thanksgiving, it kind of extends out into the northern high plains and just the plains and areas of the Midwest. So this backs up exactly what we just explained. And as far as the precipitation outlook, if you're in the green, you got an above average chance to see precipitation. Well, you got a higher. I always mix this up. We got a higher than not chance to see precipitation, whether that's rain or snow. Out here, the further west you get, that could definitely be more so in the snow category, depending on what elevation you live at. In the middle of the country, eastern U.S., you definitely have a chance to see above average precipitation in this area. And even looking at the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook, middle of the country, looking like we're going to get some storm systems, okay? We got a chance at above average precipitation, especially once we get into that dark green. That's a higher chance at above average precipitation. I mean, that's getting into that, 50, 60, 70, 70% a chance at above average precipitation in this time frame. So, this backs up pretty much everything we just explained. Now, what about the temperature part of this? And we're going to start this off this coming Friday. I mean, it's probably going to get into the 70s and 80s across the south over the next several days. Pocket of cool air across the southwest will start off Friday, November the 21st, this coming Friday. And I mean, warm air continues to dominate the middle of the country. We're starting to get into Monday of next week, so 8 days from now, most of the country is warm. But then we see a change out west. You see the blues and the greens, is below average temperatures. And I know this kind of confuses people. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but you just got to know around what your average temperature is for this time of the year. If it's, 60 degrees, then you might have highs and around 50, 48 degrees if, they're calling for 10 to 12 degrees below average temperatures. But most of the central, the eastern U.S. above average in the temperature category. But there is a battleground developing on the Euro Ensemble. You can see that. So how much does this ooze kind of eastward and takes over more of the central U.S. as we get past the Thanksgiving time frame? We'll talk more on that here in a second. But, pretty much Thanksgiving week, East is going to be warm, west is going to be cold compared to average. Okay? And I mean, the Euro Ensemble, of course, is a little bit different as far as how quickly the cold air progresses. I'm going to switch it to this and make sure we have the updated information here. And, we start to get all the way out to Thanksgiving Eve, the 26th. Eastern U.S., eastern half of the lower 48 cold. Western, you got some cold air moving in. Those green colors, I mean, that's getting to, 10, 15 degrees below average. And then we start to make our way to that 300-hour time frame, all the way out to, Black Friday, Friday the 28th. You see the cold air is progressing further east quicker than the Euro Ensemble. This is where the Euro Ensemble has it at 300 hours. This is where the Euro AI Ensemble has it. So moving east faster, we go all the way to the end of the run, and it's trying to get this into the eastern U.S. And, you look at the latest GFS Ensemble, same thing. We get this in motion. Most warm air, pretty much gripping the entire lower 48, and then the things start to change as we start to get into Thanksgiving week. Some cold air starts to show up out west, and then we get closer to Thanksgiving, and then there's that battleground of temperatures right across the middle of the country. What happens as we, progress deeper into the run, all the way to the last day or two of November, things get a little bit kind of more so everywhere. So it looks like most of the country begins to cool off. And this backs up the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, 21st through the 25th, leading up to a day or two before Thanksgiving. Most of the country leaning towards above average temperatures, except the Southwest, but especially the Southeast. You're going to be well above average, which is where I live. 8 to 14 day temperature outlook runs right through the Thanksgiving period, all the way into portions of the last weekend of November. Eastern half of the country still looks warm. Western half, cooling off near normal to below average temperatures expected. So, as far as, kind of getting micro detailed on actual operational runs, they are everywhere. Some show a cold front sweeping across the last couple of days of November. Some do not. So there's still a lot of question marks with this. And listen, everything that we just discussed is backed up by this graphic that was issued a couple of days ago from the Climate Prediction Center. Significant pattern change increasingly likely across much of the country. And we're really focusing in on that period from the 22nd to the 1st of December. We're about to discuss from the 1st of December through about the 12th of December for the second half of this update. But, read it here. One thing I will note here was what we're about to talk about. The potential for a rare November sudden stratospheric warming event may usher in a significant pattern change later in the month into early December. About to break that down. So, in the week leading up and including Thanksgiving, a colder pattern is likely for the west, while milder air overspreads the east. Later in November into early December, a transition to a colder pattern is forecast across much of the central and northern U.S. So let's go on and dive deep into that. And here's a closer look at the 3 to 4 week temperature outlook. And this is running from the 29th through the 12th of December, which is what we're going to discuss, the early portion of December, kind of getting into later in the month too, a little bit towards the end of this. But this was issued a couple days ago. Our next update will be the 21st with this. But the entire blue area, this is where you're leaning towards below average temperatures. Southeast, yes, I know, I see it. I know I got a lot of people tuning in from the south. We're going to be stuck in a bit of a ridge nudge. And we'll talk about if we can beat that down. So this is where we leave off at the end of the Euro Ensemble. This takes us all the way out to the evening of the last day of November, pretty much November 1st. So this is where the cold air is stopping, right in here. It's just starting to ooze into the middle of the country and starting to sneak into areas of the eastern U.S. The blue is below average temperatures, kind of the warmer colors, the orange, things like that. That's a few degrees above average. So let's look at what the 500 millibar pattern is at this point. So what's giving us this look, right? Well, this blue is a trough. It brings down cold air, normally brings storminess with it, kind of a storm system, whether that's a winter storm, severe weather, combination of both. Okay, and then you see these colors right in here, the yellows, the oranges, things like that. That's a ridge. Normally brings above average temperatures. So from the 300-hour time frame, this pretty much covers the last couple days of November. You can see that big blob of blue sort of move a little bit further east and northeast. One thing that is really catching my eye is this is a big dump of cold air going into this trough. So if I kind of draw on this a little bit, I'm going to use black here. We kind of got a ridge here, and we got a kind of a drop of cold air from the Arctic region going down into this dip in the jet right in here. Do we have some sort of active storm track? We got to figure that one out. Okay, this ridge of high pressure, this is going to continue to pump in warm air, and there's going to be some sort of temperature battle here. So kind of explaining that. And then starting off, we're leaving off with this. So we got to start off here, right? Okay, so this is getting into the first day of December. And I know it's a Euro Weeklies. It bounces back and forth a lot. But, when we're trying to figure out the pattern, see if it backs up this, it backs up that, this is the best thing we can look. It's really the only thing we can look at. So you see the blue area? That's a big old trough. Okay, and it continues to really be anchored over the central and eastern U.S. It's bringing cold air, stormier pattern. We still got this stubborn ridge right here. So what happens as we progress forward? And I do want to show you this too. Okay, this is backing up this and this. And what this is a big time warming of the Arctic region. That sudden stratospheric warming events where we have a pretty significant spike in temperatures in the upper levels of the atmosphere above the Arctic in a pretty short amount of time. Let's leave it at that. So big warming in the Arctic region. This dislodges cold air south. Where does it go? Does it go here? Does it go there? But you look at this, and I really think this will max out around Thanksgiving, and this will dislodge cold air down to the lower 48. Where will it go? What side of the globe will it go? We're pretty confident we're going to get Arctic air that spills down to the lower 48. So how does it progress? So this backs up this and what backs up this and this. So let's start it off here. Let's extend this through the early portion of December. So as we're starting to get several days, we're 5 days into December, this big old bowl of a trough over Canada and areas of the northern sections of the country. To me, this is probably going to dump a lot of cold air into probably this region right into here. Okay, you see this stubborn flattened out ridge down here. This tells me that cold air is going to have a hard time getting south. Could change. All right, we get a full 8-9 days into December. Now we're getting a bit of a ridge spike over here, and the trough is more so digging across the central to eastern U.S. Not diving super deep, but it's definitely digging deeper. Cold air is able to kind of usher in right into here and maybe move further to the east. Okay, and then we continue to move even further in time all the way to the middle portion. And this would definitely support a more stormier pattern for the eastern U.S. and colder air for the eastern U.S. How far south does it get? Well, you're not seeing much of that ridge spike anymore across the southeast, and it looks like a lot of people are talking from mid-December onward, if we can get the MJO phasing right. I know this doesn't look like much, and we need this to position a little bit better, but things could get really active, a couple weeks leading up to Christmas. So what does all that mean? Well, if we look at temperatures and how they respond to what we just showed you, as we're starting to get to the first week of December, all right, you can see the blue. This is slightly below average temperatures moving across. And this makes sense. See the below average temperatures across the middle of the country, northern terrain. Remember I just told you that here? If we go back to, and we are everywhere in this, we go back to this look right here. Okay, and this is for pretty much the 6th and the 7th of December, right? It pretty much backs up this very well in this time frame. Okay, cold air, mainly up in this region. Still hanging on to average or slightly above average temperatures down here. And that, to a T, pretty much matches up with that look right there. It's a great example, honestly, of how you can look at this blue and this yellow-orange, and then look at this blue and this yellow-orange, right? Okay, but as we move forward here, we start to try to warm back up across the western U.S., and you can see more of those colder-looking anomalies across the eastern U.S. Nothing too crazy, but certainly there as we get into the week leading up to Christmas. The show's snow and things like that. This is between now and the last day of November, right? Pretty decent, and we just showed you this, but there's a reason I'm showing it to you again. Okay, where it's the lead-up point, right? This is the potential, not a forecast, for snow in these areas. But then we extend from the 1st through about the 15th of December or 16th. Look at that big change. This is between now and the end of November. This is between now and about mid-December. See how there's a big change here? Snow drops, which you might think, okay, well, it's winter. That's going to happen. And you're right. But, there is a big change. But I think the bigger change comes here. Watch this. This is, like I said, the eastern U.S. Not much in the way of snow, unless you're in just these favorite areas between now and the end of the month. It's just going to be warm across the eastern U.S. Backs up exactly what we just talked about. Then we go all the way to about the 16th. Look what changes. Everything bogs down a little bit. Okay? And we even extend this to 46 days. Bogs down even more. All the way into the last couple days of the year. So, one of the biggest things we got to figure out. And let's see if we have any updated information. It just doesn't seem like we've been able to get... Still trying to figure out when the MJO thing updates. And it is just slow to update. But I like to look at this one here. Euro extended here. So, I've explained this a couple times in my last couple videos. We're going to make this a little bit smaller. And let's just use, let's use pink here. All right, so this is the MJO. And this is kind of the forcing in the atmosphere. And listen, it's not the easiest to explain. So I like to just give you guys the easiest explanation of this. This is phase 7, 6, 5, and 4. Okay? These phases right in here, these are warm phases. 7 could definitely work out, and it is for areas of the country. But 6 is, pretty much a warm phase across the entirety of the country. You can still get shots of cold air in these phases. Doesn't mean it's just going to stay warm, but normally the dominant feature is warm air. Okay? 8, 1, 2, and 3 are colder phases, especially 8 in December. Where are we right now? And you might can guess. We're in phase 6. Okay, what's our date right now? It's what is it, the 16th? And everything's so jumbled up right here, it's hard to see. But we're kind of right into this region. We're starting to flirt with phase 7, which makes sense on how our atmosphere is going to respond. So we're going to kind of hang out in this area for almost the rest of the month. And then finally, if this is correct, and this is kind of like the model runs. This could change a lot. We're going to very slow ride it through phase 7, all the way through about the first half of December. And then as we start to, and this is the updated one. Okay, so I don't know how I just caught that. So I think we quite literally just got to update. This said 11:14 a second ago. So this is updated information. And honestly, it looks a little bit better. Okay. So we got the newest update, even though I know it's the 16th, but this is the newest update. Sorry for getting off track. I'm just excited. All right, so phase 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So that's not phase. That's the date. We're in phase 7. Okay, and then as we get around the 13th to the 15th to the 16th, we start to enter the glory phase. All right, and that's where we need to go. Now, the slow riding feature of this is agonizing. But if you're a cold and winter weather fan, which I know not everybody is, if you slow ride this through phase 8 and 1, through the late half of December into early January, I know it's going to take a while to get there, and it's going to feel like we're not going to get there, and we might not. But if we slow ride it to these phases and through them, then we are going to be working with just gas through the best climo time of the year. And I really think there is a high peak with this. The waiting game is going to make everybody irritated. I can already read it in my Facebook comments. You can already read a little bit in the YouTube comments, Twitter. Everybody's like, oh, it's delayed, and just denied. Listen, I get it. I get it. But, I'm not going to sit here and say keep your emotions out of it, because I put my emotions in it. But just don't knee-jerk react to everything, guys. This is going to take time. But there is a high peak with this, very high peak. A high ceiling is what I'm trying to say. So things could get pretty wild as we get a little bit into December. I just don't think for the Eastern U.S., early December is going to do a whole lot. But we'll continue to try to figure it out. And I know a lot of people's like, well, Mitch, or this guy or Billy Bob Cornelius said, right when we get into December, things are going to get crazy. Well, I don't know what Billy Bob Cornelius says. So now it has been delayed a little bit. I'll admit that. It's a little delayed, but we'll figure it out. All right, today's weather, we got some energy out west. We got some energy in the northeast, and everybody else is quiet. A little bit of cold air to work with this energy. Not a whole lot of cold air to work with this energy, except if you're in the Sierra Nevada due to elevation. You're getting rocked with some heavy snow. But watches, warnings, and advisories, winter weather advisories up in the Sierra Nevada and areas of the Central Rockies. Red flag warnings out for areas in the Mid-Atlantic and northern North Carolina. I mean, it's dry. It just doesn't seem like it likes the rain anymore. The Northeast, winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings are up for the winter weather ongoing. Some dense fog out there with the clashing of air masses. We do have some thunderstorm risk out in the west. Not a big deal, though. The risk of flash flooding. Certainly watch out in areas of the California coastline between San Fran and Las Vegas. And then looking at the weather for today across the southeast, it's pretty quiet. Not really a whole lot to speak of. Maybe late tonight to tomorrow morning, a little bit of thunderstorm activity in Arkansas, Mississippi, so we'll watch for that. And in the northeast, we'll continue to deal with this snow up here in Maine, and then cold air will usher in, and it'll turn into a wintry festive day across the northeast. Going to put a Christmas tree up, little lake to lake to lake connection here from Lake Superior all the way through Lake Huron, all the way into Lake Ontario and Erie. So some lake effect snows will be ongoing across these regions, and just a festive afternoon, evening, and then overnight period. And this low pressure is going to continue to spin around, kind of get locked up in New Brunswick, and just continue to bring snow up into Maine. Sneaky winter storm up there. And just snow between now and about 1 a.m. Tuesday. Certainly northwest, northern areas of PA, southwest New York could get some snow from this. And we're just going to break down each state. Let's go up to New York. That's not what I want to look at. Yep, it logged me out. Always love when it does that. So let's go on and pivotal weather. It's cheap, but man, it really can get on my nerves sometimes. Let's go this. And this is what we're looking at for New York between now and 7 a.m. Tuesday. So a lot of snow up in the Adirondacks and the Tug Hill Plateau. Almost said the Pug Hill Plateau. And then around Syracuse, get a few inches of snow. So it's been a decent start to winter up here. It's just been kind of a weird pattern that's only included you guys. And then snowfall up in Maine, northern New Hampshire, Vermont. Definitely a good bit is expected. So the south central U.S. continues just to be dead quiet. I mean, just nothing to speak on. North central U.S., the eastern UP is just going to get this consistent lake effect snow banding feature here. And this is going to bring increased snowfall totals. A half a foot of snow could fall, depending on where you live in the eastern UP of Michigan. So just kind of a band that's just going to affect you guys. The western U.S., just a lot of weather out here, rain here, a lot of snow here, and a lot of cutoff energy kind of up under, well, kind of trapped into this ridge of high pressure. And this is how much precipitation could fall, but a lot of this is going to be snow in the Sierra Nevada. Definitely rainy times out here, and this is the eastern U.S. cutoff boundary of temperatures. Northeast locked into really cold temperatures. The south, 70s and even low 80s. So it's chilly up in the upper Midwest, but it could be worse. And this is out west, very warmer than average temperatures for the most part. So, hey, that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful Sunday, and we'll do it again in the next video.